You won't believe what happened to me after my mom's death. But before I begin, please subscribe to my channel. It means the world to me to have your support while I share this deeply personal story. My name is Carol. I'm in my 20s, just out of college, and I carry a story that has shaped my entire life. It begins with a house that technically wasn't even mine, but my mother's, at least until she lost her battle with intestinal cancer years ago and left it to me. Mom was always the careful, planning type. Even before the illness, she made sure every detail of life was sorted. The house was hers, fully paid off, bought long before she ever met my father. Looking back, I thank God for her foresight. She even showed me the will and reassured me, this way you'll always have a home, no matter what. Her voice was steady, even though her body was crumbling. But life hadn't always been so complicated. My parents' marriage lasted years until my dad decided to walk out when I was just 9. No screaming, no custody battles, no property fights, just him packing his bags and leaving us behind for another woman. The only thing he did was set aside money for my college tuition, transferring it all at once as if that checked his dad box. Soon after, he built a new family. His wife Linda gave birth to their daughter, my half-sister, who was several years younger than me. Sometimes I visited them at their rented house, but it never felt like home. Linda was always doting on her daughter, fixing her hair, fussing over her accomplishments, while Dad was too busy with work. Providing for his family, he called it. Except, apparently, I wasn't really included in that definition anymore. Linda would politely ask, "Carol, would you like to stay for dinner?" But the way she said it made it clear she hoped I'd say no. We kept things civil. Birthday cards, holiday greetings, and the occasional stiff family dinner that made my skin crawl. Meanwhile, Mom kept pushing through. As a senior accountant, she made good money. But when the cancer hit, she quit everything to focus on treatment. I was still a teenager then. Our lives became hospital visits, treatment plans, and long nights of hope mixed with fear. She never complained. She never broke. She just kept planning, kept fighting, kept making sure I'd be okay, even if she wasn't. But cancer doesn't play by anyone's rules. Just weeks before I was supposed to leave for college, Mom died. I was shattered. I could barely function under the weight of it all. That's when Dad shocked me. He, Linda, and my half-sister moved into my house. He told me, "We'll help you through this, Carol," putting his arm around me like he was still the father I once wished for. Linda nodded, all sympathetic smiles, while my half-sister ran through the halls of what had just become my inheritance. By the end of that summer, I was left standing at a crossroad. College was weeks away. The house was now mine. And I had no idea what to do with it, or with them still inside it. The thought of selling it, but leaving it empty for years, didn't seem smart either. That's when Dad came up with his proposal of a break fast one morning. Carol has said, pushing his coffee mug aside, "I've been thinking, what if we stayed here? We pay all the bills, maintain the place. You wouldn't have to worry about anything while you're at school." I looked at Linda, how I was making pancakes at the stove. She turned around and smiled. "Dit would be good for all of us," shedded. "Sophie's already enrolled in the local school, and the house would be well taken care of. It made sense during the months they'd been staying with. Mithings had been surprisingly okay. Linda had stopped being so distant, and Sophie, my half-sister, had actually started treating me like a real sister instead of some stranger who showed up occasionally. So I agreed. Looking back, it seemed like the perfect solution. I packed up Mom's personal things, keeping what I wanted and storing the rest in the attic. I left for college feeling confident about my decision over the next 4 years. I came home during holidays and summer breaks. Those visits were nice. Actually, Linda would cooked. He's big welcome home dinners. "I made your favorite lasagna," she'd say, as if she'd always known my favorites. Sophie would drag me to her room to show me her latest artwork or tell me about school drama during Christmas breaks. We'd all decorate the tree together. Dad would lift Sophie to put the star on top, while Linda and I argued good-naturedly about whether Tinsel was stacky or classic. We'd sit around drinking hot chocolate, and sometimes I could almost forget that this wasn't the family. It started with summer visits were different, longer, more relaxed. Sophie and I would spend afternoons by the community pool, and I'd help her with her summer reading. Linda would invite me to her book club meetings, and we'd actually have fun dissecting whatever romance novel they'd chosen that month. Your sister's so good with Sophie. I overheard Linda tailing Dad on evening. It's nice having her home. That made me feel warm inside, like maybe we're all had become a proper family. I called regularly during semesters, weekly chats with Dot about my classes. Catching up with Linda about house maintenance. The roses you planted are blooming beautiful. Unlike Carolyn FaceTime sessions with Sophie, who kept me updated on her middle school adventures, everything seemed perfect. We'd created this strange but functional family dynamic built on the foundation of my mother's house. It never imagined it could all fall apart so quickly. But I guess that's the thing about houses. No matter how solid the foundation, you never know what's going on. Behind the walls, finally with my degree in hand and a job lined up back home, I was ready to start the next chapter of my life. I'd already accepted a position at Marshall & Bro. O'Case Financial in my hometown. They'd interviewed me via Zoom and offered me the job right away. Everything was falling into place perfectly. Or so, I thought. The taxi dropped me off in front of my house on a sunny June afternoon. I stood there for a moment, taking in the familiar sight. Mom's rose bushes were in full bloom. Thought they looked different from how she used to maintain them. The lawn was neatly trimmed and new curtains hung in the windows. Little changes that had happened while I was away at college. Wheeling my suitcases up the front walk, I reached for my keys as Millie already imagining sleeping in my old room tonight, but when it tried to unlock the door, something was wrong. The key wouldn't turn. I tried again, thinking maybe I was just tired from the journey, but not. The key definitely didn't fit. What the hell? I muttered, trying the key again before finally giving up and knocking on the door loudly, since it was the middle of the day, and they might be watching TV. Linda opened the door, her eyes widening. In surprise, as she was wearing an apron and had flour on her hands, like she'd been baking. Carol, what are you doing here? I wheeled my suit. Casey inside, noticing Dad and Sophie in the living room, both looking equally startled by my appearance. Sophie was sprawled on the couch with her phone, while Dad sat in his favorite armchair, Mom's old armchair, actually reading something on his tablet. What do you mean I live here? I said, looking around at what seemed like subtle changes to the living room decor. Why were the locks changed? Dad said, touched his neck, that nervous habit he's had since forever. Oh, I changed them last month for safety. You know, there were some break-ins in the neighborhood. You could have told me, Azed, trying to keep the annoyance out of my voice, or sent me new key. I meant this is my house. We weren't expecting you. Linda said carefully, her arms crossed over her chest. She'd wiped the flour off her hands and was looking increasingly uncomfortable. Why not? I graduated last week. It told you guys I was coming home to start my new job. I looked between them, feeling increasingly uneasy. Something was off about their reactions. Sophie had even put down her phone and was watching the scene unfold with an odd expression. Carol Adcut and suddenly standing. Up Kenwood Hawk in the office for a minute. It followed him into Mom's old office, my office. Now, technically, the room still had Mom's degrees on the wall, her collection of financial reference books on the shelves. She closed the door behind Hughes, and I noticed his hands were shaking slightly as she turned to face Melissa. Honey, he started, his voice low. There's something you need to know. Linda, well, she thinks this house belongs to me. I stared at them, not comprehending what had told her it was my house. He continued, not meeting my eyes, that I gave it to your mother and you out of kindness after the divorce, and that after your mom passed it, reverted to. She thinks she'd just been living here because I allowed it. I must have stood there regapping at Dad for a full minute before finding my voice again. My first instinct was to storm out of the office and tell Linda everything now. I understood her surprised look when I showed up in her mind. I was just some freeloader trying to crash in their house. I have to tell her the truth. I said, moving toward the door, but Dad caught my arm. Please. Carol had begged, his voice barely above a whisper. Just give me a little time. Alpha. Deuce a new place to live, I promise. I just need to figure out how to tell her without destroying our marriage, destroying your marriage. He said, what about what you're doing to me? He pulled a set of keys from his pocket, holding them out like a peace offering. These sir for the new locks, pleases weath heart. Just a few weeks, that's all I'm asking. Let me handle this my way. It took the keys, feeling sick to me stomach. Fine. I said, finally, but this is insane, Daddy. You know that, right? Nodded, relief washing over his face. Thank you, honey. I'll make this right, I promise. But things started going downhill immediately at dinner that night. The atmosphere was thick with tension. Linda kept shooting. Mathis looks across the table, all her previous warmth gone. The woman who used to bake my favorite cookies and invite me to book club now acted like I was a stranger who'd wandered and off the street. More potatoes, Dad. Sophie asked, completely oblivious to the tension. Would anyone mind if I redecorate at the living room? Linda asked, suddenly not looking at Meth. The current setup is a bit dated. I gripped my fork tighter, knowing she was talking about Mom's furniture arrangement. Dad cuffed awkwardly and changed the subject. The next morning, I was making coffee when Linda cornered me in the kitchen. She was still in her robe, hair uncombed, but her eyes were sharp and focused. Carol, she said, leaning against the counter. I think we need to talk about your plans, my plans. Yes, when are you planning to look for your own places? She asked it casually, like she was asking about the weather. Now that you have a job lined up, you should start thinking about moving out. You're a grown woman. Now, after all, it took a slow sip of coffee, counting to in my head. Actually, I've talked to Dad about staying here. For now, he's fine with it. Linda's lips pressed into a thin line, and for a moment, I thought she might argue. Instead, she just turned and walked out of the kitchen, leaving me alone with my cooling coffee and a growing sense of dread about how this was all going to play out. The next 2 weeks were like living in a hostile environment. Linda's attitude shifted from cold to downright passive-aggressive. She'd accidentally wash my clothes with colors that would bleed, claiming she forgot which laundry basket was minsheed. Family dinners, but conveniently make just enough for 3 people. Acting surprised when I came to the table, when it tried to watch TV in the living rooms, she'd suddenly need to vacuum right there. If I was using the kitchen to make breakfast, she'd barge in and start reorganizing the cabinets, muttering about how some people never learn to keep things tidy. She even moved my mother's favorite vase from its spot on the mantel to some corner shelf, claiming it didn't match her new decorating vision. The worst part was watching Savalo, her mother's led my half-sister, who just weeks ago had been sending me memes and calling me for advice about boys no rolled here yes. Whenever I entered a room, she started calling me that girl when talking about meta her friends on the phone, loud no for meta her. Despite the tension at home, my professional life was taking off. I visited Marshall and Brooks Financial, where they showed me my future workspace, Ennis Corner desk with a view of downtown. My future colleagues seemed friendly and welcoming, especially Sarah from the risk assessment team, who offered to take Met let lunch. When do you start? She asked over sandwiches weeks. I replied just enough time to settle in a thome. That evening at dinner, I shared my start date with the family, trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy. They showed me office today. It started in weeks. Linda's forked against their plate asset, tit down with exaggerated care. Well, isn't that wonderful? Once you get your first paycheck, you can start looking for your own apartment. I know of some NIS complexes across town, very affordable for young professionals. I call. Gate Dad's pleading look across the table. His eyes seemed to be meta keep quiet to maintain his light just a little longer. I stabbed at my peasant, said no thing to avoid the tension at home. I started reconnecting with old high school friends. Katie and Jessica were still in town, and we'd meet for coffee or shopping trips, falling back into our old rhythms, as if Notum had passed. But coming home was always uncomfortable. I'd walk in and hear hushed conversations from the kitchen or living room that would stop abruptly when I appeared. Dad and Linda would spring apart lie. Key guilty teenagers' papers would be hastily shoved into drawers, and fake smiles would plaster themselves across their faces. Saturday morning, I woke up to an unusually quiet house, no sound of Linda's weekend meal prep in the kitchen. No Sophie's music blasting from her room, no dad watching sports on TV. The silence felt wrong, somehow like the calm before a storm. I padded downstairs in my pajamas, checking each room as I went. The kitchen was spotless, not just clean, but unused since the night before. The living room was empty, the throw pillows perfectly arranged on the E-couch. Sophie's boots usually cluttering the entryway, where Ganev and Dad's car wasn't in the driveway. I checked my phone, no messages, no notes about where everyone had gone. My first thought was that maybe they'd gone out for breakfast, but something felt off. They never went out for breakfast without at least leaving a note. Even during these tense weeks, they'd maintained that basic courtesy. It tried calling Dad first, but his phone went straight to voicemail. Weird. It tried a few more times with the same result, that automated voice telling met the person I was trying. Orich was soon available. A knot started forming in my stomach. Finally, I called Linda. She picked up on the fourth ring. Just as I was about to hang up, "What do you want?" Their voice was sharp, hostile in a way I'd never heard before. In the background, I could hear waves and what sounded like tropical music. "I just wanted to know where everyone is," I said, caught off guard by her tone. I woke up and the house was empty. She laughed, an ugly, mean sound that made my stomach clench. "Oh, didn't we tell you we're in the Maldives? First-class flights, luxury resort. The works, we didn't mention it because, frankly, we didn't want you tagging along and expecting us to pay for you. Too, not that you'd know anything about paying for things yourself." What I wouldn't say, but she cut me off. "I'm sick of this whole situation. You're nothing but a lazy freeloader living in our house like you own the place. Your father might put up with it, but I'm done. Do you know how embarrassing it is to have a grown woman living in our house, eating our food, using our utilities?" My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. Eisen can ton of the kitchen chairs, my mother's chairs act. Yuli, my legs suddenly too weak to hold me up. "Linda, no, you listen to me. She's gnarled. Your father never loved you. You were just an obligation. He already wasted enough money on your college education. And now you're squatting in our house like some entitled princess. Well, I've had enough. Did you think you could just live here forever mooching off foos while we work hard to maintain this home?" I could hear Sophie giggling in the background and Dad's muffled voices saying something I couldn't make out. The betrayal felt like a physical blow. "When we get back," she continued, her ice dripping with venom, "I want you gone. Do you understand me? Pack your things and get out of our house. If you're still there when we return, I'll throw you out myself, and trust me, I won't be gently about it. I don't care where you go, live on the street for all. I care you're not our problem anymore. And don't bother trying to call your father. He agrees with me. He's just too weak to tell you himself. We've already blocked your number. Have a nice life, Carol, or don't." I really couldn't care less. The line went dead. I ate in that kitchen for what felt like hours. Fury's lowly replacings. Hawk, they were living in my house. The house my mother had worked for had left to mean they had the nerve to call me a freeloader to try to throw me out. Well, I'd had enough of playing along with Dad's lies. I blocked their numbers on my phone, my hands still shaking, but now with anger rather than hurt. Then I started methodically going through the house, gathering their belongings. Linda's expensive clothes, Sophie's school stuff, Dad's golf clubs. Everything went into boxes and suitcases. I worked through the entire Saturday, fueled by rage and bitter disappointment. By Sunday morning, I had their life packed up and stacked in the garage. I found our locksmith who could come right away. He worked quickly, replacing the locks on all the doors. It cost a small fortune, but it was worth every penny. When he finished, I handed him my credit card, feeling a strange sense of satisfaction as I clutched the new keys. Monday morning, I started my new job at Marshall & Brooks. For weeks, it threw myself into work, learning the ropes, making new friends, trying not to think about the confrontation I knew was coming. I kept their stuff in the garage, but I rearranged the house back to how Mom had it, removing every trace of Linda's decorating vision. Then came that Friday. I pulled into the driveway after work to find them standing the red ad, looking nervous, Linda faced with fury, and Sophie hanging back with a scowl. They must have just gotten back from their vacation. Their suitcases were still in their rental car. Linda started screaming before I even got out of my car. "How dare you change our locks? How dare you lock us out of our own house?" I walked calmly past them to unlock the door. Linda followed, still yelling, "We're calling the police. This is breaking and entering. This is our house." It turned to face them, something inside. Finally snapping, "No, Linda, it's not our house. It never was. This house belongs to Memmy Mother. Bought it before she even met Dad. She left it to me and her will. The only reason you've been living her." Eyes because I allowed it temporarily, Linda laughed. But it was an uncertain sound. She looked at Dad. "Tell her. She's lying. Tell her this is our house." Dad wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. She just shrugged his shoulders, slumping. "She's telling the truth. The house, it was always hers." I watched as the truth sank in as Linda's transformed from rage to calculation in a matter of seconds. Sheer entire demeanor changed like as which had been flipped. "Oh, Carol's Weethart," she said, forcing a laughy. "You didn't think I was serious on the phone, did you? I was just joking, you know. How I can get. Sometimes all that sun and those tropical cocktails went to my head. Stop it." Azed quietly, but she kept going. "We're family. Remember all those nice times we had, the book club meetings, the holiday dinners. We can have that again." She took a step toward him, outstretched like she was going to hug. Meta jumped in, then his voice, thick with emotion. "Princess, I'm so sorry. I know I handled this all wrong, but I love you. You're my daughter. Please, can't we work this out?" I looked at them, really looked at them, the father Hulft, when I was nin who paid for my education, but missed my life wholly devout my house, my inheritance, my mother's legacy work. Without Dad, the fact that you lied to your wife about owning my house, or the fact that you stood by while she planned to throw me out of it. Linda turned back to me with that smile. "Carol, it's reasonable. We can all live here together. We'll pay rent." "No," Azed firmly, "we can't. Your things are in the garage. Take them and leave." That's when Linda's mask cracked again. "You ungrateful little, after everything we've done for you. You'd throw your own family out on the street." It felt oddly calm as I replied, "You just spee and what on a luxury vacation you deliberately hid from. I'm pretty sure you can afford an apartment." "Carol, please," Dad tried, again reaching for my arm. "I know I messed up, but no, I cut them off. You didn't mess up. You lied 4 years. You let your wife believe she owned my mother's house. You watched her try to decorate it, rearrange it, erase every trace of Mom. And when she planned to throw me out, you said nothing. I was going to tell her the truth." He protested when after I was gone, after she'd finished making my house her home. I shook my head. "I'm done. Get your things and get out." I walk. Inside and closed the door, ignoring Linda's screams about ingratitude and cruelty through the window. I watched them loading boxes from the garage into their rental car. Linda was still yelling, her face red with fury. Sophie was crying. Dad just looked defeated. It took them 3 trips to get everything as they loaded the last box. Dad tried one more time knocking on the door. I didn't open it. They finally left as the sun was setting the next day. Dad tried calling from a new number. "Carol, please," he begged, "we can fix this." "No, Dad, we can't." I said. Linda made it very clear how you all really feel about me, freeloader and obligation, someone you never loved. Maybe those were her words, but your silence is enough. That was months ago. I still live in Mom's house, my house. I've repainted the walls, planted new roses in the garden, made it mine again. Sometimes I think about them, wonder where they ended up. But mostly I think about Mom and how she made sure I'd always have a home, no matter what. Dad still tries to call, sometimes from different numbers. I don't pick up anymore. Some bridges aunts burn should stay. It's just the funny thing is I'm happier now. My job is going well. I've made new friends at work. And for the first time since Mom died, I feel at peace in this house, as sometimes healing means letting go of people of lies of the fairy tale of family you wanted to believe in.